So Biden has now taken a victory lap in Europe, but the war in Ukraine is now raging with no end in sight. And now the U.S. might be, well, sleepwalking into what is a devastating, ongoing, never-ending quagmire and global conflict. Now, Putin just backed out of a long-standing nuclear treaty. President Xi is headed to Moscow for an important visit. Both countries now have threatened to annihilate the U.S. and our allies. A new axis of evil is building right before our eyes. And China is now demanding that we, the U.S., apologize to them for shooting down their spy balloon in our airspace. North Korea is now firing off ballistic missiles left and right into the Pacific Ocean. Our enemies are clearly emboldened. America under Joe Biden is weak. The war in Ukraine is now officially a quagmire. Biden just sent Ukraine enough weapons and ammo only to continue the fight. He never signed off on the munitions that would be actually needed to win the war. And meanwhile, as per usual, Europe is not paying their fair share, not even close. The EU is a lot closer to Ukraine than the U.S., and yet America has committed more than double the amount of aid, actually triple, $112 billion. That is more than all the other European countries combined by a lot. And when Poland and other countries, when they offered fighter jets so Ukraine could actually win the war, Joe Biden was the one to veto it. He wouldn't let it happen. Another long, protracted Democratic war, another Joe Biden Democratic Party quagmire. Everyone on earth is taking advantage of Biden's weaknesses, and that means our friends, our enemies, and everybody in between. Here with reaction, Fox News contributors Charlie Hurt and Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, I have great sympathy for the people of Ukraine. I do. Putin is murdering innocent men, women, and children. He is targeting civilians. He's targeting neighborhoods, apartment complexes, infrastructure. And here we're at nearly $120 billion that we have committed. Europe about $30 billion. And Joe keeps vetoing Europe's desire to give them fighter jets that they could actually compete in the air over the skies of Ukraine. Now, if they're not going to fight to win the war, why should the American taxpayer be paying any of this money?
That's a question many Americans are asking. And when they see how ignored East Palestine, Ohio is, and the people in need there, 5,000 American citizens, residents, they ask that question even more. Look, Ukraine is 5,000 miles away. It's a 12-hour plane trip. I think East Palestine is about 200 miles, maybe a 30-minute trip on Air Force One. The president could have done both. And since you mentioned Pete Buttigieg, I think it's very important that people understand this is a young man who's long on ambition and very short on effectiveness. He likes to say he speaks 8 languages, but he's not able to articulate compassion and connection with people who may be a little bit different than him. It took him, Sean, 10 days to even acknowledge what happened. And obviously it comes under his purview at Department of Transportation. And then when he did acknowledge it, where did he do it? Where did he do it? He did it where all the elites communicate with each other. He went to Twitter. He didn't go to Ohio. And now he's going to go to Ohio, but people have been in need. And you know, when you have a disaster, either natural or man-made, when you have an accident, those first critical hours and days are essential. And I worked in a White House where a president, a first lady, a vice president, others had to be deployed quickly to the site where the hurricane was, or the wildfire, the shooting, et cetera. And so as long as you're not getting in the way, you need to be there. Listen, look people in the eye, tell them what they need. Even the CEO of the train company is there, the railroad company. He's been there twice, and he, as Mr. Shaw has said, I apologize. I'm sorry this happened. We'll be here for a very long time, and we'll see what you need. So they see this split screen. Americans see a split screen. They see a president, a commander-in-chief in Ukraine, and all the money that is costing them. And then they see absolutely nothing going on for their own citizens, their own brethren in Ohio. It's very frustrating to people, and it's why folks have questions.
I think it is very frustrating. Also, you know, when Poland wants to give MiG fighter jets to the Ukrainians so they can fight and actually win the war, Joe Biden is the one to veto that, Charlie Hurt. And, you know, he's getting all this praise and talk of all this bravery. Now we find out that, in fact, they tipped off the Russians and said, Joe Biden's going to be here in this location. Don't shoot this location during these hours, okay? So it wasn't the big surprise or the big act of bravery that the media was making this out to be, was it?
No, and not only that, but it's pretty clear that they ginned up the air raid sirens for the moment that Joe Biden walks out, even though they had not been going off for days and there was no reason for the sirens to be going off. It's all a staged optical campaign event for Joe Biden, and I do think that the juxtaposition between him being there and the American people suffering in East Palestine is shocking, and it's going to stay with people. We went from the most America First presidency that we've ever seen to a complete America Dead Last presidency. Whether Joe Biden likes it or not, the people of East Palestine are the people he works for. He doesn't work for the people of Ukraine. And I think it's kind of interesting. One of the signature achievements that he's very proud of is his so-called infrastructure bill, which was actually the Green New Deal bill, where they spent over $1 trillion, much of that money going to China. What did it not do? It didn't fix America's rails. Because maybe if it fixed America's rails, we wouldn't have had the catastrophe in East Palestine in the first place. But these people don't care about that, and it really does raise all these questions about what is the Biden administration's and what's the Biden family's interest in Ukraine and China, because that's all they want to help. And gee, does it have something to do with these business interests? Because they clearly don't care about East Palestine.
And you could definitely add Russia to the list. And clearly, East Palestine didn't give Hunter Biden any business deals, so I guess they're low on the priority list. But the bottom line for most Americans, if $113 billion, and they won't let Ukraine even begin to compete to win the war. If you're just going to fight for a tie or a quagmire or a protracted conflict, then America has no business sending any money to Ukraine. Anyway, Charlie Hurt, thank you. Kellyanne Conway, thank you.